Art is subjective. That is what many believe, and something that is ultimately true. Yes, the beauty of art lies in the eye of the beholder, but what makes art compelling? What draws you to a certain piece? Why does it capture your attention? Often, when we hear art, we think of Picasso's paintings, the Mona Lisa, Greek sculptures, or something classical and refined. We think of art as something to be seen and pondered. Rarely do we consider the art and the things that we interact with, especially digital art. That is the beauty of video games. It is a medium that is built upon interaction. Every level of the design is made to be appealing, so you are enticed to engage, whether that's in a simple way like gacha games that make you feel attached to the way a character looks, or a more complex way such as horror games which elicit emotional responses that keep players hooked because of the dreadful feeling. The most captivating part of a game, or any story really, are the characters. So, how does one go about designing a character? Thankfully, the core concepts of CT are applicable in many ways, and that includes character design in video games. Here's how it works.
To design a character is a really broad term, so much so that it applies to other mediums as well, like books, movies, and others. In decomposition, we can narrow them from top to bottom, from general to specific. First, you can separate it into the developer side and the player side. Video games are interaction, not just because of the controller, but also because of the humans behind it and the humans behind the scenes. On the developer side, you have the intention. What do you want to portray? This can further be broken down into visual storytelling, environmental, and written. Visual is your first impressions, something that gives character through cultural associations. For example, a character who wears a suit is probably serious. Meanwhile, a character who wears crop tops and a short skirt is upbeat and preppy. Environmental storytelling ties in with the visuals. The characters need to look like they're a part of the setting and the game that they're a part of, like a knight in medieval times or a dragon in fantasy worlds. That is not a strict rule, however, because of the written aspect of the portrayal. Anything written well can be a good enough reason to break the rules. A princess can be in New York, a cheerleader can be in a zombie apocalypse. All three work together simultaneously to create a cohesive character. You also have technology, which refers to the space, whether it's 2D or 3D, and the platform. The platform will help define the technological constraints as to what kind of character you can design. You have your consoles, PC, or mobile. And under consoles, you have your gaming giants like PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. Although some people love showing that Doom can be run on anything with a screen. On the player side, you have the desired effect. Market appeal and longevity are the two categories. Market appeal refers to how iconic the visual design is. When you see red and green, you think Christmas, but slap a mustache on them and you think, oh, Mario and Luigi. Under market appeal also lies the audience. Are you designing a character for a children's game or a AAA hyper-realism slugfest? Something in between that breaks the boundaries within both. Longevity asks, how will the player feel about this character after the visual, environmental, and written story have been presented?
Of course, games and characters are constrained to what they run on and the current tech available. A world can't be infinitely vast, just like how a character can't be infinitely abstract and unique. Abstraction in character design is a more literal visual sense. Stylization is a skill that comes with experience and practice. A good example would be Gundams. They're mechs notorious for being difficult to design and draw because of the intricacies in the machinery, especially if the universe the mech is in has imaginary technology that doesn't exist in real life. But somehow, despite the complexity, you get the SD mini versions of these Gundams. They're squished down but maintain the overall silhouette and character. This is a great exercise in evaluating good design. A readable silhouette, unique and obvious traits, and the ability to be simplified yet recognizable. Having distinct motifs, such as an accessory, an emote, or even a theme song, are other ways in which characters are abstracted, and they can be easily recognizable to the players, even if they are not physically present in the scene.
The process of character design is endlessly iterative. You have to actively decide when to stop because improvement is boundless. This is where teamwork comes in. When you design a character, you have to work with a team for feedback. You trade ideas back and forth, scrapping some, adding new ones, and sometimes starting over from scratch when things don't work. The typical process goes something like this. You have your IP, the proposed game and overarching plot, and you are tasked with creating a character that plays this one role in the story. All good design starts from inspiration and reference. You gather images and text relating to the game and the desired character you have in mind. You make a mood board. Then you get this evaluated and make sure that the information you gathered is both accurate to the game and accurate to real-world references. Next, you make your first drafts, and they're all messy sketches, just ideas thrown on the wall to see what sticks. You get this evaluated. Does this character work with everyone else's ideas? Is the design appealing? You draft over and over again until the team agrees on the concept. Next is creating the structure of your character. Building upon the foundation, you detail the outfits, add small quirks that speak of a greater story like a scar or a crooked tooth. You get this evaluated. People will check whether the details are too simple or too complex. Does this character reveal too much about the story or too little? Are the technical aspects correct, like color, proportion, and anatomy? You settle on a design, finally, and the team is proud of the character. Then you pass it on to the dreaded suits, the higher-ups who manage companies, money, and funds, and they send the character back to you, saying change this and that. You evaluate again. This is of course a simplified and streamlined interpretation. Reality is much messier, but this is how the overall design process operates. Your defined are the desired deliverables such as the character. The sequence is the iterative process of drafting and redoing. Memory and time are pretty much the same. The character you create needs to be viable for the engine of the game you're designing it for. Evaluation. As mentioned repeatedly, evaluation is present at almost every single stage of designing a character. In terms of CT, evaluating refers to seeing it as a whole. Correctness. Your character design and character artwork need to show understanding of the art fundamentals. Color, anatomy, composition, perspective, values, rhythm, and lighting all have to be honed and present. Are there any errors in continuation both on the technical aspect and the design/story aspect? Does the character and design stay consistent with the overall style and also the specific style of the character? Efficiency. Does your character make efficient use of the platform's capabilities? If your character, when designed in 3D, has so many unnecessary polygons for an overall simple game, it's inefficient. Too much time and memory will be allocated to this character, when there are other things that are equally or more important. Imagine if you place the model of Pyramid Head from the Silent Hill 2 remake into the PS2 game. Your console would explode. Design a character that works with the engine, not against it. Elegance. This is more of a subjective concept that comes with experience and time. Each software has its own layout, and there are a myriad of keyboard shortcuts that need time and familiarity. Usability. You could create the next Sistine Chapel, but if someone else opens your files and the layers are unnamed and the file isn't even compatible with the software that the team is using, then that's not viable. Your work needs to be usable and understandable to other people, even those who are not part of the creative side, such as the CEOs who have to evaluate your work. Remember that when designing a character, you have to work with other people. You need to consider things such as DPI and overall clarity if the image is 2D. Separating your sections and layers both in 3D and 2D, and giving them proper names so that others are able to read and understand your digital file. A messy file, no matter how beautiful the design is an unusable file.
Designing a video game character is different from the traditional creative process. Apart from artistic skills, you have other factors to consider and lots of ground to cover. Through CT concepts, you can do the following. Decompose the broad prompt into something more specific and easy to manage. Abstract your ideas into a balanced representation of fantasy and reality. Use algorithmic thinking to streamline the process and workflow. And finally, evaluate your work whether you've designed a character that is worthwhile. Computational thinking is an effective way to organize your approach to a character design. Though at first glance, art and computational thinking seem to be opposites, but they actually work in harmony.